Okay, I got 8:43. Let's give it another minute. I know the door blocks off the way the door swung open blocks off the sign. People trying to find the room. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's more and more coming in.
Can we please have the session unmuted?
My name is Joe Cerubi. I am a consultant for the Interstate Renewable Energy Council. I've been with them for the last dozen years. In my prior life, I was an electrician by trade, and then I went through an apprenticeship. I then went on to college, became a professor, department chair, and executive director at a community college for 32 years, and teaching in the technologies during that time and overseeing a number of technology programs. This particular topic is a real passion of mine because I remember going back to high school and our particular principal during graduation, all the parents were sitting down in the gym and on the lower level on the basketball floor, and all the students were up in the bleachers. And the principal at the time was very, very impressed with the caliber of that particular class, supposedly, and said, you know, this is one of the smartest classes I've seen at this particular high school in a long time. And at that point, he said, you know, just to show you how smart this group is, all those who are going to college, would you please stand up? And I'm sitting in the bleacher, and all of a sudden, all these folks started to stand up around me. And I wasn't one of those people. I wanted to be an electrician like my older brother. And that had an impact on me. I never forgot that. And I share that because there's a lot of people who can have a very wonderful career without necessarily going to college, with an opportunity to go gain some great skills, work a great career, have a wonderful living wage, and be quite successful. And so to me, part of what we're doing today is to talk about some of those opportunities. And I'm going to do that around the green environment, the built environment a little bit, to kind of act as an awareness to opportunities, so that when you think about the folks you're working with and trying to help them, guide them down the road on what they're attempting to do. Again, it could be a displaced worker. It could be a parent who has been out of the workforce for a while and wants to get back in and trying to figure out what to do with their life. There's some significant opportunities in the green and built environment that people aren't aware of. And there's great opportunities to do that without necessarily going to college. And so my focus today, and again, so now the title, New Collar Jobs, what are they and how they align with the green economy and non-traditional education and career paths. And I'm going to be talking about those career paths as we move forward. What is a new collar job in my mind? And I will tell you, I kind of stole that title from the former CEO of IBM, Ginny Rometty, who was talking in some conversation that she was on at some point and said, you know, we don't need people with a 4-year degree. We need people with skills, people who understand what we're attempting to do. And she says, I don't call them white collar, I don't call them blue collar, I call them new collar. It's this infusion of some level of technology and having some soft skills that could get people to the next level quicker without, you know, putting themselves in significant debt, without having to worry about, wait, I've got to now wait 4 more years before I can actually get to a job, you know, and then worry about how I'm going to do that with raising a family or my personal environment and situation. And I said, you know, that concept works in a lot of different areas. So when we think about new collar jobs, all right, new collar jobs in my mind are jobs, all right, that do not require a 4-year degree, all right, that could become from some non-traditional role. And I would even call an apprenticeship somewhat traditional. They've been around for literally thousands of years when you think about it, right? Before higher education really expanded. I mean, you think about people who apprenticed under some master craftsman or whatever to become that next crafts person down the road. Could be somebody who got on-the-job training, somebody who went and got a certificate, somebody who maybe started college, dropped out, but during that time got some skill sets already, or maybe just by tinkering themselves have been able to come up with some good skill sets that are transferable to a decent job. And so to me, new collar is like just a great term that we can unstigmatize some other areas as we move forward. So with that, yes, STEM and the built environment is what I'm going to spend a little time focusing on. And, you know, sometimes people hear STEM and they're like, oh no, STEM, right? And it can be a little intimidating in that regard. I'd love to demystify it. I'd, you know, try to come up with my own acronym for STEM, you know, like something that everyone makes, all right? When we think about the built environment, right? I mean, go all the way back to kids with Legos and building blocks, going back to making sandcastles and trying to make something stand up. All the way since a young child, you've learned that certain things work, right? The laws of nature, right? They work, and then other things don't. And you start to figure that out. But we get very nervous when we start hearing about STEM education and having to go through algebra and trigonometry or high-level science or whatever, when people have been doing this their whole lives. It's how do we apply that, right? And to make sense of it. And so I'm going to talk about this a little bit within that built environment, but I'm going to go back to these pictures a little bit to kind of help give a little bit of an early vision. So you see that house, it could be somebody who became an energy auditor, all right? And they're now using a heat sensor, right, to determine, right, where's the hot spots in the house? Because maybe then they're afterwards going to go back and they're going to be adding caulk. They're going to be adding insulation. They're going to be doing some physical work to make that house more energy efficient. But it's this infusion of technology, right? Now they're working with the heat sensor that they never had before to help figure this out. So you think about any person who has a cell phone, all right, and they're using it and they're taking a picture and then maybe they upload it to their whatever, or they share it with somebody. We call that data acquisition. Right? All of a sudden we got a fancy name for like, oh, data acquisition, right? I've been doing that with my iPhone or my cell phone for years, right? And so it's the idea of how do we demystify you look at the person with the solar array. Think about how many young minds are spending forever on gaming and playing, right? And now we're doing it with a drone where we can actually see things from a different perspective that saves us a ton of time. Think about even somebody who's working in, say, the wind environment for wind technology as an example, right? And the opportunity to be able to determine whether those blades on that wind turbine, I don't have to go up 300 feet and rappel down anymore, right? To be able to see whether we've got cracks in those blades, I now can use, right, a drone to be able to see all that. Think about somebody who's a bridge inspector, right, who doesn't necessarily need a 4-year degree to be able to inspect a bridge and use a drone to be able to see where there's cracks or there's corrosion to be able to make that happen. I can get some good technical skills, have a great job, all right, and I'm going to be, utilizing those skills in a number of different ways to aspire to do different things in my life. I look at that girl who's drawing on the board right now. The person that she's drawing in front of, maybe that's an architect, and maybe she's an intern or apprentice, and he's trying to figure out how to solve a problem on particular design of a house, and says, hey, what do you think? And she's up on the board and she's giving her input because this is a path that she chose. And maybe the only way she got started was even back in high school, taking a CAD course, or maybe out of high school, taking a quick online CAD course and, getting some basic skills that says, this is pretty cool. Where can I now do this? And how do I get to that next level, right? So just to give you a sense of, we can demystify this and we can give people a vision of an opportunity without having to necessarily go back to school for 4 years. And while I'm not knocking it, I've got my advanced degrees, I'm just saying that there's opportunities that people can go to that's a choice, right? In the past, we've always talked about, well, Johnny, he's not college material, right? We stigmatized it right from the beginning, right? As opposed to saying, Johnny chose to go this direction instead, right? And that's fine because there's great opportunities in that direction. So anyway, STEM in a built environment. So I'm going to talk about some of this around what I call the Green Buildings Career Map. All right. And for the last dozen years, I've been focused on career mapping and giving people an opportunity to see a lot of different careers, especially within the green environment. And the latest one that I was developing, and this is through a Department of Energy grant, because they realize as we're trying to make significant policy changes in our country and our state to reduce our carbon footprint, one of the things that we can do, and this goes back to the weatherization programs and all, right? How do we reduce our energy usage? How do we go green by using clean energy, renewable energy? And that there's going to be, and there are significant job opportunities in that environment right now that people just aren't aware of. All right. And there's a lot of these jobs that you can get without having to go back to, get a 4-year degree. So I'm going to use this as an example to kind of push forward the concept of new collar jobs. So why career maps though? All right. There's been tons of studies out there. Even if we were talking about millennials, Gen Zs, a lot of them, for them to stay with a particular company, they want to know, what's my future? Not just I have this job. Right. And that's always a big problem. Somebody gets started in a job and after 3 months, they leave. And the companies, we're finding that out more and more with employers, that they're frustrated that somebody will go to work and then they leave after a month, 2 months, 3 months. They put all this time into them because then the person realized, or at that moment thought, this is what I'm going to be doing the rest of my life. This particular process will be great for employers because they can show, look, I've got a lot of different jobs titles within our company. You start here for me, but you could migrate to this particular area, right? And we're going to talk more about that as we move forward. All right. So it's true. People need a vision, all right, of where they're going. And the other neat thing about the green environment, we certainly know, especially with the millennials and the Gen Zers, all right, that they want a job that obviously, while pay is still the #1 thing when they're being surveyed, high up on the list though is a job that brings value. And the idea of doing something that they know is having an impact on the environment has become important to them as well. All right. So again, while I'm talking about Gen Zs and millennials, this is the same concept for a displaced worker or an older adult learner who's trying to get back into the work environment. All right. The other neat thing about career maps, they are extremely engaging. The ones that we've been able to do, it's something you'll be able to give a particular person and just say, have some fun, take a look at this. As an exploratory type process, we're going to spend more time talking about it. So the one that was recently developed was the Green Buildings Career Map. There happens to be 55 job titles in the green environment on this particular map, which is really cool. What I'm going to do is go live right now because a picture, I believe, is worth 1,000 words. And some of the faces that I see here came to my booth and got a chance to see a little bit of that. And I'm going to go into more detail here now. So with that, let's go live. Oops, what happened here? Let me go back. Sensitive there. Where's my mouse? Okay. Oh, that's great. Are we staying? We're there. Good. The internet's working. Fantastic. All right. What's really nice is that this particular product, which is free, by the way, all right, it was developed through funding from the Department of Energy because their concern is, we're trying to really build up this whole process. We don't know if we've got the skilled labor force to be able to do all this work as we're trying to move down this path. So there's going to be, and will continue to be, significant opportunity in this particular area. I'm going to go right to this particular one first, the new collar jobs, and clicking that. Of the 55 titles, when you see all these bubbles start to liven up here a little bit, there's over 30 of them, all right, that are actually classified as new collar jobs. These are jobs that do not require a 4-year degree. There's an opportunity for somebody to have a GED or a high school diploma and navigate their way through a number of different careers across multiple sectors here and get up to the highest possible level, making significant money with just a high school diploma or a GED. Yeah, sometimes I'm starting at the apprentice level or at the bottom. But if I know that there's a path, am I willing to stick it out? Am I willing to put the time and the work in, right? To learn my skill and prove to my employer that I am worthy of going to the next step, right? So that's what this is all about. How do we get people excited to be able to move to that next step, right? Some people are not as motivated as others, as we know, and they'll plateau. But then there's those who are just very excited to get to that next step. I wish I had $1 for every time, all right, I've had people who've come back to me, all right, and said, I started exactly as you talked about, right, at that level and migrated up and became the all-American dream, got a great job, moved on up, married, kids, bought a house. I even just a couple of weeks ago got a phone call from an actual former student who wasn't sure if he was going to go to school, college, and this was for a 2-year degree, all right? So when I was teaching 39 and a half years with National Grid, he finally decided to go back to go to school, got the associate's degree, and after 39 and a half years with National Grid, retired again, married, kids, the whole 9 yards. And he had a phenomenal career. After 3.5 years, he was making in the 6 digits, right? And that was with a 2-year degree. And if he chose not to first come to Hudson Valley Community College, which is where I was teaching, he could have started through their apprenticeship without going to college and work up and go through line worker program and what have you, which is what he did. And then he became a substation mechanic, a relay technician, and moved on up through the company, all right, without even going to college, but going through the apprenticeship. And these stories are out there over and over and over again, once they have that vision. So to me, it was all about helping to create a vision for some of these jobs moving forward. So I wanted you to see these particular 30 jobs, all right, around that we call new collar jobs. So on this particular map, there's a bunch of them. And I'll start right down here on this particular job. All right, so I'm looking right now as an energy efficiency, the building performance installer. At an entry-level position, again, this particular job does not require really any skills, and a company will say, look, I'm desperate for workers. If you're ready to work hard, you come in, work for me, all right? And I'll pay you, and you show up work every day, and but look at all the other opportunities once you are in that position that you could aspire to. All right, and that's the important thing, is getting people to realize if they're motivated, they don't have to do that particular job forever, but they have to do it enough to get to understand the job to move to that next level, right? And so that's part of it. So if I wanted to move up, maybe, and I was using an example for the people who came to my booth, I was saying, all right, maybe this particular employee was a great communicator and just loved what they were doing, very passionate about what they were doing. And the boss saw them and said, you know what, I'm going to move you into sales. And so all of a sudden now, you can see that's an energy efficiency sales representative. Now that moves me into another position that gives me all bunch of other opportunities that I can migrate to. Again, I just have a GED or a high school diploma at this point, but I'm starting to move up the career ladder. Maybe I started working, maybe the company that I'm working for was installing a lot of Lennox heating systems or Trane air conditioners, all right? Companies that we recognize. And I got to know those people, and they said, you're really good at what you do. How'd you like to be a manufacturer rep, right? And so I then end up going up to become a product sales specialist. And now I'm making good money. I'm selling those Trane air conditioning systems. I'm going to conferences, and I'm at my own exhibitor's booth with my Trane air conditioning system, right? Seems like a long way away from when I was installing insulation in that very first job, right? But that's how we migrate. And I think if you go back to your own personal career and where you started and where you are right now, was it a straight line or was it like this? And I also believe a lot of us sometimes get into the roles we are somewhat haphazardly, right? And just we kind of fall into that role. And sometimes we stay, sometimes we don't, depending upon our passion and motivation and a lot of external things, right? But at the end of the day, having some level of career path to show somebody at the beginning that maybe never had envisioned that these opportunities existed, I think are really important. So you can start to see the idea here, around these jobs. The nice part is then also I can get into the job detail and I can see what's the salary range for these particular jobs, the required education and training, all right? And move on, skills and requirements. If I go back, every single one of the entry-level positions, and I'll say insulation apprentice, there's the different jobs right there. I can start out as an insulation apprentice. And yep, all right, I might be wrapping ductwork, all right, to start out of my career. That might be something I'm doing, all right? But I'm gaining skills. I'm learning team building, working with other people, all right? I'm going through the different increments of that particular process. And from there, once I move to that level, and again, just a high school diploma. So let's go back. You see the different areas. Let's say now, after doing 4 years of an apprenticeship, I become a journey person or mechanic. Now, all of a sudden, I'm at a whole nother level. And then where does that get me? I might decide that I want to become my own contractor. And I end up buying a van, putting my name on the side, and I'm out there doing all this work, maybe in the weatherization program where I'm now a performance installer and I'm working with inner cities and I'm helping to improve the energy efficiency of replacing windows and doors and insulating attics and all to bring down the energy efficiency. Where did I start? I started as an insulator, right? And I was able to work my way up, right, through this opportunity. And so a lot of what we're talking about here is getting people to that next level if they're interested in going, but they have to have somewhere to start. And so in my mind, these are great opportunities and great jobs, and they cut across multiple sectors. The nice part about this for you, and depending upon whether or not you are actually in the workforce portion of your organization, If not, if you can share this to help out. Anybody who comes in and sits down with you because they're trying to find a job, this is something you can give them. It's very intuitive, right? And you can talk about the idea that, you've got your GED, you got your high school diploma. I don't care if you're 35 years old or 40 years old, you've got skill sets that are very transferable. All right, think about a mom who has to organize, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and getting kids off to school, and all those skill sets of how do I organize, and then I become an administrative assistant working for a large company and getting my foot in the door. Part of it is confidence. A big part of it is that, and the opportunity that you can instill by having this as a tool to help get you through that process. So that's the way I'd like you to see this particular product. It's a tool for engagement, sitting down with somebody, talking with them about opportunities. It's a did you know moment, right? That old saying, we don't know what we don't know until we get to know it a little bit. All right. I'll also make one other distinction. The word ignorance sometimes is mismaligned in my mind. All right. In my mind, ignorance is I just don't know about a particular thing. That doesn't mean I can't learn it. All right. And so people get nervous because they don't know something, but it takes somebody to help show them how to do a particular thing. When you first did your job, gotten your job wherever, and you had a certain software within your particular company that okay, this is how you're going to connect with this particular department, whatever. Somebody showed you how to navigate that, right? So prior to that, you were ignorant on that particular software tool, right? It's the idea that I don't look at ignorance as a negative thing. I look at it as an opportunity to learn something and whatever skill I want to particularly learn, right? And so it's all about giving somebody confidence. And I believe, especially in the, when I look at the target populations that you are dealing with, I think a big portion of that is confidence or lack thereof, right? I was just doing a class for GED students, and this was an online course. Every student was trying to just get their GED, and I was given the opportunity to talk a little bit about the Green Buildings career map. We're actually doing a follow-up because the teacher said afterwards, the students walked away so motivated, so excited. Besides the questions I got, the questions that came afterwards, she gave me a list of about 50 questions that the students were pumped up and excited about because they saw something that resonated with them. And it was about giving them a chance to get excited about an opportunity. And it was interesting. One woman who, a learning adult who, again, has been out of work for a while, was the first one to ask a question. And she said, how could I really do this? All right. And she had the most brightest smile. She just had a vivacious look on her face. And as she was asking her question, because she was the first one, because everybody else was like, oh, I'm afraid to ask this question, online, with this process. I said, the fact that you had the courage to be the one to ask a question first, to break that ice, tells me that you would be phenomenal for sales. I was like, look at that smile. My God, you going to somebody's house, all right, and trying to, sell about, putting windows and doors in to, make your house more energy efficient. I said, look at, and all of a sudden it was like, you could tell she just lit up, like she blossomed because somebody gave her a sense of confidence at that moment, right? And she's so pumped up about thinking how now she can go and pursue that, all right? And a lot of it is just having something to show, right? And this is, in my mind, a great way to go down that path, all right? So with that, there's areas up here that talk about this map, which is great. And again, it's very intuitive for people about this industry. All the different areas, architecture, building operations, commercial, residential, multifamily. We've also got a whole section on resources. So for example, for us, we were really focused on target populations. So yeah, look, a community action partnership is right there, right? But also the American Association of Blacks in Energy, the National Association of Women in Construction, and the list goes on. We want to make sure that there was resources out there available, all right, for people as we move through or as they navigate the map. And then what's really cool is what we call frequently asked questions, like, you know, what's a green building, right? You know, and why only 55 jobs, right? There's going to be people even on here who might be an employer or somebody who knows about this and says, well, my job's not on there. And again, it comes back to when you're working with hundreds of job titles and you get subject matter experts together trying to decipher which ones you want to put on the map. And let me tell you, those were very spirited conversations, even for talking about advancement routes because of their own personal experiences. Somebody says, yeah, from that job, you could go there. And somebody says, no, you can't. And somebody else goes, oh, yeah, you can. And then now we're having a long dialogue about that. And we come to a consensus, right? So, you know, when you have kind of a national map, right? So I share with you all the different resources and the opportunities. So this being totally intuitive, you don't have to teach somebody this. You can give this to somebody. But if you have the time that you're working with somebody to sit down and say, let me show you something, right? And if you can get somebody on a path to success, knowing that you are on a new collar job, you don't need to go to college. You don't have to go to college. If you choose to, you can start here, all right, and gain some skills and maybe gain a certificate and then continue to build yourself up as time goes on. All right, so big focus. I want to make sure on my time here. I know, all right, I'm almost right up about that 30-minute mark here. So I want to be conscientious to open it up for questions as well as we move forward. So let me go back out to the map as a whole. Again, we've also got these multi-sector routes where just the map itself will show what would be called a reasonable career path for somebody coming from one sector to another. Maybe they started out in the residential and they ended up over in the architectural area. Maybe they started out in the residential and they ended up in building automation, all right, which is really cool. If you think about how buildings, you know, all the little things, you know, like I'll use this hotel for example, right? Getting up in the morning, the lights are off, walking into the bathroom, underneath the sink, the light went on, motion sensor, right? To just give some light. Who installed that, right? For convenience, right? When you think about all of a sudden a room like this that was empty, and now we have 40 people in the room, and the amount of CO2 that we're all dispersing, all right? There's sensors, oxygen sensors, that will make sure that more oxygen comes into this room so we don't fall asleep, right? Who's doing that kind of work? You don't need a 4-year degree to learn that technology to get to that level, but you could have a great opportunity, great job, making good money, doing fun things in the built environment, all right? Great job. So wanted to give you that heads up as well. So with that, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to go back to, and let's see, I'm going to go first to 19, enter. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, two other career maps we developed. One in careers in climate control technology. All right, that was our fancy name for HVAC. All right, and there is a whole slew. We have over 40 job titles on that particular map, and you can actually get to that from the Green Buildings career map. I probably should have done that. Let me go back to, let's see, it was the next one. At the bottom of it, there's an area called Explore Other Career Maps, and that brings you to Clean Energy Career Maps, and it shows the solar career map, the HVAC or careers in climate control. So this gives people an opportunity to look at other areas within the built environment as well, because maybe they're like, yeah, this is kind of cool, but where else could I go? What else could get me excited? And this is an opportunity for them to get into something that's extremely engaging. So with that, I'm going to, let me go back here and 20, enter. All right. I'm going to open it up to questions, all right, that anybody might have through this presentation. Anybody got any questions that they'd like to throw at me? Yes, before you ask, can we get the mic up there? Thank you.
So mine's more of a comment. I just saw a meme yesterday, a family member posted, and I mean, I'm all for this. I get a little turned off on these memes and probably shouldn't pay attention to it, but it's a zero-sum argument. They kind of put down college, careers because you build up debt and things like that, and to promote non-college degree career tracks and things like that. So that kind of irritates me, but I really appreciate your presentation. Kind of took, that zero-sum argument out of that.
Oh, thank you. Again, like I said, I'm not anti-college at all.
Exactly.
Right? I'm just saying there's other choices.
Right.
Right. And so it's the idea of a mindset when somebody knows that that's a choice I'm making. I choose to go down this path. Right. It's not something that I'm either forced to go down, or it's not something that if I choose not to go to college, that I'm somehow stigmatized along the way. Right. So it's just kind of shown it from a different angle. So I really appreciate that comment. Thank you. That was a good one. Any other questions? Got to go. Let's get the.
Well, it's both a question and a comment.
Okay.
The comment first, not necessarily in green buildings, but my daughter, who was in the Navy, got out, right? She didn't want to accrue debt. So she got a scholarship, went to automotive technology class. Now she's a mechanic. She knows sandblasting, all of the rest of that. She knows how to build a car from the wheels up.
I love it.
So like you say, with the green buildings, you got to think non-traditional.
Exactly.
Because everybody says, okay, go over here and do this. Okay, go over here and do this. But if you're stuck in a job where you don't make the kind of money that you want to make, is that really the job that you want?
Right. Exactly. It's a great example. And like I said, I have so many examples like that, like your daughter. And I'm glad that, it was an opportunity to bring up a female as well, because there's so many roles and opportunities to do this kind of work. You think about cars, right? The country's trying to go all electric, electric vehicle by, whatever number, and every state now is setting their own policy that, they want 50% of the vehicles in the country to be electric, right? So when you think about the whole value chain and supply chain of that, right, for people to feel confident, that I can now have an electric vehicle and I need to find a place that I can get charged outside of my house. Who's building that infrastructure for all those charging stations? Who's installing those, right? Right. And then the list goes on. Go back to your daughter working on building an automotive car. Think about the technology that's all infused in cars right now. I mean, it is a computer. Who's doing that, right? When you think about, sadly, in the old days, people would talk about automotive technicians. They're the grease monkeys, right? They're the ones who look at cars today, right? You open up the hood. I used to work on my own car many years ago when I was a kid. I don't want to touch it now, right? And I've got a very strong technical background, but I'm like, no. I want to bring in somebody who really totally understands this. So there's tremendous opportunity, and your daughter's going to have a really, really successful career because of all the skill sets that are significantly transferable, right? Great one. Any other? Yeah, right here.
Joe, I appreciate hearing this. I lead a small community action agency, small rural agency, and this is a second career for me. I'm a retired school superintendent, and after 31 years, and in many respects, 20 years ago, we got some things right with the whole STEM influx. Mm-hmm. We got a lot wrong. I was involved. We got a lot wrong. I'm from Missouri, and involved in a Midwest consortium 20 years ago, and I look at this as very intriguing. I haven't stopped by your booth, but I will.
Okay.
I find this especially as community action professionals, people involved in not a handout, but a hand up.
Thank you. My
That
favorite saying.
this is very timely. It's very germane to what we're trying to do, because many times I know that I'm still learning. I mean, I've only been in community action for 3 years now, but I rely on my education leadership background, and then a lot every day. And so this is this to me is very exciting to hear you be as passionate as you are standing up there. And look, I look forward to kind of picking your brain some more later on about how it relates to what we do in community action on a daily basis. So thank you, Joe.
Oh,
Appreciate
my
it.
pleasure. And yeah, I really look forward to having I've got some of my own thoughts around even the high schools and the counselors that go on back there, and some of the challenges around that, and how we even articulate graduation rates, and, you know, who's going to college and all that, right? There's, you know, we need somewhat of a paradigm shift here in certain ways to get people to feel confident, you know, to go to that next level. So I appreciate you making those comments. Thank you. Any other thoughts around this? Okay, well, not hearing any. Folks, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Oh, thanks. Hey, thank you for attending. It's great. And if you haven't stopped by the booth, please do. And maybe we can do a one-on-one there as well, okay? Enjoy the rest of the conference.